Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Remembrance Day is quickly approaching. We tell you where and how to take in a ceremony. Plus, in addition to vaccines, Alberta Health announces a new medicine to combat COVID-19. And the province's top doctor explains what this new Western Canadian COVID strain actually is.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. Health Canada has recently approved a new monoclonal antibody treatment for COVID-19, and Alberta Health began administering it this week. Our province's top doctor says sotrovimab was developed specifically to treat patients with mild to moderate COVID-19 symptoms.
It is the first treatment to be offered to outpatients in Alberta. For maximum effectiveness, it must be administered within 5 days from when the symptoms begin. Today, AHS's EMS mobile integrated health teams began administering sotrovimab to patients in their homes who are age 65 and older, are positive for COVID-19, unvaccinated, and who wish to have this treatment offered. Patients in Fort McMurray and surrounding areas will receive treatment in an AHS clinic. Some patients who have received a solid organ or stem cell transplant will also be eligible to receive this treatment regardless of their vaccination status. The treatment is being rolled out across the province in a phased approach, starting with those at the highest risk of severe outcomes like hospitalization.
For more information, you can visit ahs.ca/COVIDopt. You may have heard the buzz about a new COVID strain that's developed right here in Western Canada, but Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health says it's actually a sublineage of the Delta variant.
So it is not a different variant of concern. There's no evidence that it causes any more severe illness, that it evades vaccine protection, that it's significantly different from the Delta variant that has been circulating as the dominant strain in Alberta since late summer. So we know that when viruses replicate, they can change their genetics slightly. And so sometimes you have these sublineages that evolve. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they behave differently from that parent strain, and that's the case with this particular sublineage.
Lethbridge police were on the scene Wednesday afternoon in the 2100 block of 5th Avenue North. They executed a drug search warrant at this house shown. One man was taken into custody without incident, and the investigation is ongoing. We'll provide more information when it becomes available. The execution of the warrant was scheduled in coordination with administration at a nearby school to ensure students were safely inside. Well, here's an update to a story we brought you earlier. A protest of illegal activities that have been happening at the Super Lodge Motel on Mayor McGrath Drive was held earlier on Wednesday afternoon. Members say they don't feel safe in the neighborhoods close to the hotel. The Lethbridge Police Service have responded to incidents at the hotel close to 50 times in the past few months. On November 4th, a search warrant was done and 2 people were taken into custody. The police found methamphetamine, cash, cocaine, prescription medication, brass knuckles, and a machete. The estimated value of the drugs is said to be close to $25,000. The organizer of the protest, Sarah Villebrun, says she wants the owner of the motel to take this issue seriously.
The residents want to know what's going to happen going forward, right? Like, how is he going to protect not only his asset, but the neighborhood as well, to protect the kids in the area from seeing what's happening, right? Like, we're right across the street from a school. There's been drug busts here, overdoses. In fact, a couple months ago, there was somebody who died in the bushes right behind where we're standing. So, it is quite a dangerous situation here. So we're hoping that by raising the awareness, the owner takes it seriously and people realize that this is a serious issue and it needs to stop.
Bridge City News reached out to the Super Lodge for comment, and the general manager of the motel, Kevin Ogier, told us in regards to the illegal activity at the motel, we don't want it just as much as the neighborhood does not want it. Well, Remembrance Day is upon us, and ceremonies will take place Thursday as a time for us to reflect on the sacrifices veterans made to secure our freedoms. There is one event right here in Lethbridge and two others, one in Coaldale and Sterling. The Poppy campaign is also in full swing, and the Legion is hoping to raise more than $90,000 for this year's campaign. The president of the Legion, Michael Cormican, says the Lethbridge Remembrance Day ceremony will be smaller due to the pandemic.
Even though we'd love to have and normally invite people, we have to say it a little reserved because of COVID. We don't. We have to respect distancing and masking and everything that way. Even though I have a mask off now, but we're distanced, so we have to respect all of those kind of guidelines.
The Lethbridge Remembrance Day ceremony will be live streamed tomorrow on the Legion's Facebook page. A local plane collector, Jeffrey Brain, will also do a flyover by the Lethbridge Cenotaph in his Harvard plane during the ceremony. Looking forward to that for sure. During the Second World War, over 130,000 airmen were trained at 107 air bases across Canada. But 80 years later, there's only a few left to mark the history of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan in Canada, including one in nearby Claresholm, Alberta.
This here in Claresholm is it's a great place. They're making history and they're saving history at the same time. And they're saving these old hangars. The history here is great, and what the people need to know out there in Canada is this base is just like the 90-plus bases across Canada, and they graduated 140,000 combat aircrew from these kinds of bases. No major bombing raid in World War II could have been a major bombing raid without this kind of facility to train the airmen to go fly those combat airplanes. And for me as a historian, the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan is one of Canada's greatest achievements in over 150 years of Confederation.
I like to see these. It's the first time Carl brought me out here, but there's something about it. There's a few places, there's some of the old buildings left, not much. But it brings back a lot of memories. It makes you feel good just to think you were through this stuff once. And a lot of people never got the chance.
A new veteran-friendly campus at the University of Alberta is now in operation, providing veterans with specialized on-campus support and resources to help them adjust to post-secondary education and build new careers once their service has ended. Available supports include a veteran student orientation program, virtual Veteran Connect events and information sessions, military culture and sensitivity training for faculty, staff, and the campus community. Future supports include contextualized mental health supports and a peer mentorship program. Alberta's government is providing funding of $714,000 over 2 years to support this 2-year pilot program, which will provide a model for other post-secondary institutions to launch their own veteran-friendly supports. A new play with a Christmas and Remembrance Day twist is set to wow spectators here in our city. As Micah Quinn explains, the play, called All Is Calm, the Christmas Truce of 1914, is based on real events that happened during World War I.
All of the material that is used in the play is taken from real documents that were borrowed from the War Archives in London. The Christmas Truce started on Christmas Eve in 1914 between soldiers of the Axis and Allies during the First World War. This play is set in Ypres, Belgium.
What it is really, it's a plea for peace. There is no violence in this show. They do talk about it in places, but you never see it. The songs will be very, very familiar to the audience, most of them. They are, you'll hear some of the iconic trench songs like Pack Up Your Troubles and so forth.
There are 39 roles played by 12 men, and the score is sung a cappella, sometimes in 6-part harmony.
And they sing in 4 languages, primarily English, French, a little bit of Dutch, and a little bit of Flemish, and definitely German. This show also has a lot of dialogue in it. And almost every word that they say is recorded in history.
All of the money from the play will go towards supporting local programming at the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization. You can watch the play at the Yates Theatre on November 19th, 20th, and 21st, and you can buy tickets by contacting the NMAX Ticket Center. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Thank you, Micah. So nice to see that Christmas and Remembrance Day twist. I love that. And speaking of which, let's take a look at our website poll question. It asks if you put up your Christmas decorations before Remembrance Day, November 11th. And guess what? 95% of you responded with a resounding no. Not so surprising. I guess I agree that it might be a little too early to be putting up Christmas decorations before Remembrance Day, but we'll have a new poll question for you coming up next week. Now that the clocks have changed back an hour, it's also a good time of year to change out the batteries of your smoke detector in your home. We're told that 1 to 2 structural fires per year in the city of Lethbridge is also caused by improper disposal of smoking materials in the home. Troy Hicks is the fire prevention officer with the Lethbridge Fire Department, and he says you should think twice about where you butt your cigarettes.
I always tell people that I am not trying to give them trouble for smoking. People have a right, they can do what they want to do, but they just need to remember a few things. And if there's one thing I can get out to everyone to know is planters are not disposal devices for smoking materials. The cigarettes will go inside that soil of a planter, even in the winter months, and it will just smolder and smolder, and eventually it will start fire. And in the last few weeks, we've had a few fires caused by smoking.
Hicks also says it's important for every family to have a good fire evacuation plan. You can catch my full interview with him coming up in the second half of our newscast. 5 retired provincial fish and wildlife biologists provided a submission to the Coal Policy Committee earlier this year called Insights on Coal Development. Members say the submission was grounded in their experience as provincial biologists and in ecological arguments. The Coal Policy Committee was granted more time until December 31st to release their final submissions to Alberta Energy Minister Sonia Savage. Well, Lauren Fitch is a professional biologist and retired provincial fish and wildlife biologist. He says that there are no longer places in the eastern slopes where coal development can be safely, effectively, and environmentally accommodated.
Our contention is that coal mining, that involves mountaintop removal, and that's what virtually, all of these coal mine proposals would be, is that they would resemble what has been done in the past. The past is an example of what will happen in the future. And so based on that, our contention is that there is no place that a mine development could successfully be done and still retain all of those aspects of hydrologic response, ecosystem function, biodiversity, or water quality.
Fitch says the submission was based on the members' experiences, observations, and research of open-pit coal mining in the eastern slopes over a nearly 50-year time frame. This includes research references on the ecological effects of coal mining on the environment and fish and wildlife populations. The Newfoundland and Labrador government revealed Tuesday that whoever was behind a cyber attack that has hobbled its healthcare system managed to access personal information of patients and employees. The attack was first detected on October 30th and has resulted in thousands of appointment cancellations and forced some hospitals to operate strictly with pen and paper.
Through the course of the investigation thus far, it has been determined that some personal information and personal health information has been accessed. I know that sounds alarming and frightening. We do know that there is no indication that the personal information or personal health information has been misused. There's no indication that banking information has been accessed. The appropriate authorities have been contacted and are on the case.
Employee information that's involved may include names, addresses, contact information, and social insurance numbers. There is no evidence that banking information of employees was involved. In addition, we know that some patient information is involved. This is made up of the basic information that's typically logged and used when we register a patient.
I think this is quite a serious breach, and so that's part of why we want to have this discussion today. So we're in no way suggesting that this information is not quite significant and serious.
Bloc Québécois leader Yves-Francois Blanchet says he expects Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to push U.S. President Joe Biden to back off the Buy American rules when the two leaders meet next week. Blanchet says the rules hurt Quebec's economy.
I intend to go there myself in the beginning of 2022 to work on the way Quebec is perceived in the United States and raise some issues about trade, about being fair in the way the partners are being treated, mostly Quebec, as far as I am concerned.
Many Christian children across the world are suffering the long-term effects of persecution, including 11-year-old Rafif. This Christmas, there will be an empty chair at the table for Rafif's family in Iraq, where her father would have sat. Everything Rafif knows about her dad, she says she's heard from her mom and other people who knew him.
Each Christmas, 11-year-old Rafif from Iraq sets out nativity figures in a papier-mâché cave made by her dad. But Rafif never knew her father. On the 2nd of May 2010, when she was still in her mother's womb, her father was killed in an extremist attack that targeted Christian students.
My dad's name was Radif. One day he was at work, he was working, and he saw there was a bump when the students were going into the bus and they were going to their college to study, but he stopped and waved with his hand and was shouting, "Stop, stop moving." The bump didn't bump on them, it bumped on him, so he got injured and he died. People and my mom always say that he saved many people's lives and that he's a hero. I miss my dad because he's not there in Christmas. He can't celebrate it with me. Sometimes I kind of tell God that, why did you do this? Why did you take him away? But the other times I think that because he was a good person, God took him up to heaven.
Rafif attends Christian education classes. There, children are encouraged to develop a strong relationship with Jesus so that they can stand firm when persecution comes their way.
The most thing I like is that we will learn about God more. We will get educated with Christian things. And the second thing I like is that we learn new stories. Some of the prophets, they save other lives people, which is the same thing as my dad did.
What a strong little girl. Well, let's turn our attention now to weather. We didn't think that we'd see them quite yet, but we did have a chance of flurries today. They shouldn't be sticking around, though. I'll have all the weather details coming up right after the break. Stay with us. Well, we didn't think that we would see them, but it looks like parts of southern Alberta saw a slight chance of flurries today. Don't worry, though, they shouldn't be back until sometime next week. Into this evening, we're looking at 60-kilometer-per-hour winds from the west, an overnight low of -4. Into tomorrow, that wind chill is going to feel like -8 in the morning, but it's going to warm up to 2 degrees tomorrow, sunshine, and only a 15-kilometer-per-hour wind, too. So that's not too bad. Into Friday, mainly cloudy skies, 13 degrees the high. So look at that. We're jumping all the way up to the teens for Friday. Into 9 degrees on Saturday with a mix of sun and cloud, and even 10 degrees for both Sunday and Monday. And then Tuesday, there's that chance of flurries that I was talking about. We're actually looking at a 60% chance for next Tuesday with a high of 1 degree. Now, the average high for this time of year, 5 degrees, average low -6. Back in 1941, we were looking at 19 degrees, a lovely day. -25, though, back in 1995. 7:35 is when the sun rose this morning, and our sunset this evening just before 5 p.m., right at 4:55. It looks funny to see it in that 4 o'clock hour, but it's because of the time change, so we're still looking at just under 9.5 hours of daylight. Okay, so rain tomorrow on the coast. 9 degrees the high for Victoria, 10 in Vancouver. Chances of rain there. Edmonton, sunny skies, 3 degrees. We're looking at -10 with a wind chill in the morning. 2 degrees in Calgary, -9 with a wind chill in the morning. Both of those cities looking at light winds of 15 kilometers per hour. Saskatoon seeing periods of light snow in the morning, about 2 centimeters of snow though in Regina expected. -2 is the high for both Regina and Saskatoon. 1 degree the high for Winnipeg. Winnipeg looking at a weather statement, looking at 10 centimeters of snow tonight and another 10 tomorrow. Not in Toronto though, look at that, 14 degrees the high, mix of sun and cloud, 6 degrees the high in Ottawa there. That's quite a difference there, 7 degrees the high in Montreal. Now Fredericton, we're looking at the sunshine, 8 degrees, 9 degrees in Halifax under sunny skies. Looking at rain tomorrow in Charlottetown with 7 degrees high, 3 degrees in St. John's with a special weather statement. Looking at 20 to 30 millimeters of rain and 5 centimeters of snow in the higher terrain. So there you go, that is your forecast. Production shortfalls caused by drought have combined with robust global demand to push up crop and livestock prices. ATB Financial Alberta's Crown Bank says the price of durum wheat that's used to make pasta reached a record high of $593 a metric ton in September, double what it was in September of 2020. The price of common wheat was also high at $334 a metric ton, or 41% above where it was 12 months earlier. The price of canola, barley, oats, lentils, flaxseed and dry peas were all relatively high in September. The bank says higher crop and livestock prices are helpful for producers, but the benefits have been offset by reduced yields and higher input costs. A new industry forecast is calling for a 16% increase in drilling activities in the Canadian oil patch next year over this year. The Petroleum Services Association of Canada says that will be the most activity since 2019 before the COVID-19 pandemic hammered energy demand. PSAC says it expects a total of 5,400 wells to be drilled in Canada next year, up from a revised 4,650 wells forecast for this year. It says it raised the 2021 outlook from a projected 3,350 wells at the start of this year due to increased activity in the last half of the year. Canadian Natural Resources says it's reached a deal to acquire Calgary-based oil and gas explorer Storm Resources, a record high share price. CNRL says it will pay $6.28 per share, a price that pegs Storm's enterprise value at $960 million. The deal will give it access to Storm's existing production and infrastructure in the Montney area of northeast BC, where CNRL already has operations. CNRL acquired another Montney producer, Painted Pony Energy, for $469 million last year. That was a mouthful. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 132 points to 21,462. The Dow was down 240 points to 36,080. The S&P 500 was down 38 points to 4646. The Nasdaq was down 263 points to 15,622. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 288 to 81.27 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 6 cents to 4.92 US. Gold was down 5 cents to 18.49.55 US an ounce. And silver was even at 24.64 US an ounce. Wheat is at $11.92 per bushel. Barley is at $9.47. Canola is at $22.58. And corn is at $9.95 per bushel. Live cattle were down 20 cents to $1.32. Feeder cattle were down $1.25 to $1.56.65. Lean hogs were up 75 cents to $75.70. And the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 80.05 US.
Recapping one of our top stories today, Health Canada has approved a new antibody treatment for COVID-19, and Alberta Health began administering it this week. Our province's top doctor says Sotrovimab was developed specifically to treat patients with mild to moderate COVID-19 symptoms. The province will roll it out in a phased approach, beginning with administering the drug in patients' homes who are over 65, have not been vaccinated, and suffer from COVID symptoms. After the break, I sit down with Lethbridge Fire Prevention Officer Troy Hicks about the best ways to protect your home and family from fire. And don't forget to change the batteries in your smoke detectors. That's next. Keep it right here. Fires, whether residential or commercial, can be so destructive and devastating, and often these fires are preventable. Joining me today to discuss fire prevention and safety is Troy Hicks. He's the Fire Prevention Officer with the City of Lethbridge Fire Department. Welcome to Bridge City News. Troy, so great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Troy, every spring and fall when we have a time change, which we just did this past weekend, we are reminded to check our smoke alarm battery. So any ideas as to how many of us in Lethbridge actually do this?
You know, I did a little bit of research yesterday to see if it was possible to find out that percentage. I like to think the percentage is pretty high. I hope with everything we get out there on social media and with even talking to people, people realize this. To actually come out and say the exact amount would be a little difficult. I do think for the amount of calls we get to places with smoke detectors or any issues like that and battery issues, the numbers are going down. So I do feel with the constant badgering, I guess you would say, that we're doing or letting people know, the numbers are getting higher and higher, so which is perfect.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Now, can you tell us a bit about how smoke alarms work? For example, they sometimes make some unusual chirping or beeping noises that annoy us. And also, where exactly should smoke alarms be placed in the home?
Yeah, perfect. You know, when I was reading through your list of questions, this is definitely a great question. The way smoke alarms work is they'll detect smoke in the house and they will start giving off alarms. To go to the unusual beeping or annoying sounds, lots of times if the alarms beep anywhere between 3 to 5 times quickly within a few seconds and then stop, that is usually the sign it is an issue with the detector. What I recommend for people to do is have a look at the detectors that they have. Their owner's manual, it will say exactly what the amount of beeps or chirps mean. But 9 times out of 10, if they're beeping quickly and there is no smoke or no fire, it means it is a battery issue. Another thing we have with this too that lots of people are not aware of is lots of smoke detectors are hardwired. They're wired to the power of the house. And so some people think, well, they don't have batteries. Lots of times this isn't the case. There is still a battery backup. So if they start beeping, just take it down, have a look, and it's a good idea to change the batteries for sure. It's also a chance to look at the expiry date. Smoke detectors do have a 10-year lifespan as well as a carbon monoxide detector as well. So it's a good idea to have a look at that expiry date also. Now for where they should be installed, smoke detectors definitely need to be installed outside every sleeping room. So if your bedrooms are in one hallway, definitely need a smoke detector outside. Over the last quite a few years, code has changed, and now there's actually smoke in any new homes that are built. Smoke detectors are installed in every sleeping quarters, as well as outside the sleeping quarters. One of the biggest things to remember, sometimes there's not a lot the public can do. You rent a place or you move into a house and the detectors are already there. Sometimes the detectors are mounted awful close to bathrooms or they're mounted awful close to a kitchen. We see a lot of our false alarms coming from this. People nowadays shower with their door open, I guess. And so the steam does set them off, as well as inside their kitchen. I mean, lots of times it's just burnt toast or whatever. So we usually recommend a smoke detector be at least 10 feet outside of the kitchen area, just so you're not getting those nuisance alarms.
Yeah, I can speak from experience there. Ours is always going off whenever something burns on the stove. It might be a little too close to the kitchen there. So good advice on that for sure. So
it definitely happens, yeah.
Yeah, so Troy, what are the numbers? How many lives could be saved by having a smoke detector in the house? How many lives are saved but maybe weren't because they didn't have one in place or didn't replace the batteries?
I did go through some stats, and now this is the stats we draw from is North America wide. And They say on average, 3 out of every 5 deaths that are a result of a structure fire or a home fire, these are homes that did not have working smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors. So that's a pretty good percentage. I mean, maybe good's not the right word, but it's a very high percentage. So the importance of smoke detectors, they have to be, you need them. This day and age with materials and everything, and just the risk, everything's electronic. We have so many things, so much fuel load in our homes and in our properties now that every second counts. We say this all the time, and yeah, it's very important to have these working smoke detectors.
Definitely. Now, you had mentioned carbon monoxide detectors as well. So maybe talk about the importance of that. Why are they necessary?
Well, carbon monoxide is they always call it the silent deadly killer. 9 times out of 10, you don't smell it. You don't know it's there. And a person can actually be poisoned by a very small amount of carbon monoxide over a long period of time, or by a long amount. And like instances I've seen here in the city of Lethbridge in my time here was people will complain of headaches, or people will complain of issues. And through investigations, we found out that people say maybe have a natural gas fireplace in their home, and it's just not working properly. So carbon monoxide is very, very, it's a very dangerous thing. And it's highly recommended that people have a carbon monoxide detector in their home. Some other things that could lead to carbon monoxide in your house is the importance of ensuring your dryer vents are always clean, especially outside the home. I know most of us don't want to say it, but the snow is coming. And we have these things, we get snow piled up high by our dryer vents or our clean air intakes outside our homes, and that's going to lead to some carbon monoxide poisoning. So just reminding the public to make sure they get outside, make sure all the vents to their home are clear at all times, and make sure they're good for this. And like I said, have a working carbon monoxide detector. You can get different types. You can get combination smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And then you can also get battery operated ones, or mine I have at home takes a battery and also plugs into an electrical outlet. So they are very important. They work very well.
Okay, great advice there. Now, if you just have a carbon monoxide detector, is there a specific place that should be placed in your home?
That's a fantastic question. Depending on the size of your house, we all live in different size homes. You need to also look at where the risk of carbon monoxide is possibly coming in your home. If you have solid fuel burning appliances like a wood burning stove or a fireplace or things like that, very good to have one by there. The wood burning and everything can cause carbon monoxide. Also, if you have an attached garage, we remind everybody they should not be warming up their vehicles in their attached garage or anything like that. Pull the vehicle out, then warm it up. But if you do have an attached garage, where the person door that comes from the garage into the home is, it'd be a good idea to have a carbon monoxide detector there. Myself, I have mine downstairs by my furnace room where the natural gas lines come in, and that's in my property. That's where I feel the risk of carbon monoxide is.
Okay, great advice there, Troy. Thank you for that. So what are some of the most common causes of fire in a home? Is it kitchen fires or smokers not disposing of the cigarette properly? What are you seeing?
When I started here 10 years ago, number one was definitely the kitchen fires and actual fires. Like we were having, close to double digits a month of, and the majority of these, about 90% of these were small. Lots of times the homeowner would catch them and they'd be fine. As the years have gone on, we usually average 1 to 2 structure fires or home fires here in the city of Lethbridge caused by improper disposal of smoking materials. I always tell people that I am not trying to give them trouble for smoking. People have a right, they can do what they want to do, but they just need to remember a few things. And if there's one thing I can get out to everyone to know is planters are not disposal devices for smoking materials. The cigarettes will go inside that soil of a planter, even in the winter months, and it will just smolder and smolder, and eventually it will start fire. And in the last few weeks, we've had a few fires caused by disposal of smoking materials. We do still get the kitchen fires. Most of them are false alarms, detectors too close to the kitchen and people burning their food, but we do still get them. We just recently, we've had a few fires where someone hit the button for the self-cleaning on their oven and they didn't mean to, and there was actually something in their oven. Well, before you knew it, these trays caught on fire. A self-cleaning setting is extremely hot. So we have to be careful with that. And we've also had instances over the past of people bringing groceries home, putting them on top of their stove to use it as counter space, and not realizing when they drop the bags, they turn the burner on. So cooking is extremely, I mean, we all need it, but we definitely need people to really pay attention to what they're doing. So to answer your question quickly, yes, I would say cooking or kitchen fires are still number one, but definitely smoking and or electrical fires are on a steady climb up to even overtake the cooking fires.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up with the stove, especially now with most of the stove tops being very even and flat, and up against the counter. Sometimes it's easy to forget that that's actually a hot electrical appliance there.
Absolutely.
Now,
I've caught myself a couple times thinking, wait a minute, I need to practice what I preach and take the stuff off the stove for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. Now, Troy, should parents maybe have a talk with young kids about not playing with matches and lighters? A lot of times kids are very drawn into that.
Absolutely. Curiosity, you know what? And we all have it. Even as we get older, we still have it, but definitely children are curious and they don't understand. I am also a youth fire setter specialist here for Lethbridge as well, that I speak to kids. If there's ever an issue with young kids or someone starting a fire, lots of times they'll get forwarded to me and I speak to them. And I am happy to say that in the last few years, if I've spoken to 10 children, all 10, you could tell it was curiosity. I didn't think there was any malicious. They were just curious. They didn't understand how it worked. So what I would really get out there to say to parents is, yes, have that talk with them. There's so many uncomfortable talks we might have to have with children when they're younger that talking about fire safety should not be uncomfortable. But just let them know when people are camping. Lots of the children I speak to, that when they're camping, their parents let them help start the fire, which is great. That's fine. I really don't see an issue with that. But what I do see is reiterating to the children the importance of it, reiterating to the point that they have to be adult supervised to do it. And that if the adults and the parents are not around, that this just doesn't happen. If they do, we've had some instances here in the city where we've had fire pit complaints or fire pit calls in people's backyards. And when we get there, it's just children around the fire. That's not a good thing. The fires have to be being witnessed by a supervisor and an adult at all times. So I think it's good to let the kids learn these things and understand the fire is a good thing, but they also need to know that there's a huge risk and they need to be paying attention to what they're doing,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. Those little ones need to be supervised around the fire for sure. Now, what about an evacuation plan? How many families actually have a plan in place, and what are the key steps in an evacuation plan?
You know, before COVID hit, I know people don't like saying the C word, but before COVID hit, we were going to schools. I was going to schools all the time, especially in the fall. And we would, starting from kindergarten up, and we would talk about home evacuation plans. And I was having great success with getting it through the children. And then they were taking it home. I'd have parents reach out to me by phone call or email, telling me that they were so happy with this information they got. Obviously, with restrictions and not being able to go, I've been emailing schools, trying to get them this information and send it out. So I do think there is a good amount. I found over the years, as I talk to the children or talk to different people, I have more people telling me that yes, they do have an evacuation plan than I do people telling me no. Even years ago, I would have people telling me they didn't even know if they had a smoke detector. They had no idea. So that the numbers are on the rise through education and getting out in the public and talking. I would say some of the biggest points to hit on in an emergency evacuation plan is, one, everybody in a home should be sleeping with their bedroom door closed and closed tight, even the younger children. That door will act as a barrier. It will give you time if there is any smoke in your home, or heaven forbid there is a fire, it will keep you safe on the other side of that door. But what we really want people, one, if the smoke detector goes off, and unless you hear mom or dad or whoever you're living with tell you, I'm sorry, I burnt the toast again, you need to treat it as being real. Parents need to work with the children, let them know where to evacuate to. If they hear the smoke detector going off, they don't go out the back door into the fenced in backyard. That's not a safe place to be, especially if it's a real fire. So chit chat with your neighbors, find a safe place for everyone to know where to get to and where to go to evacuate to. Now, one question I get asked a lot, especially from the young kids, and when I answer it, I open up a whole can of worms, is the kids are always concerned about their pets as well during a fire. And I always reiterate to them that the pets, with that loud noise of a smoke detector, it scares them. So the pets are going to hide. We do not want the homeowners or the children trying to run back in to get their pets. If we get pulled up to a structure fire and the entire family is outside, we are so happy. But if that family tells us that their pet, their cat, their dog, or whatever is still in the house, we're putting our gear on and we're going inside that property to get that pet the same way we would for a person. So the biggest thing to remember about evacuation plan is what to do when you hear the smoke detector, and where you need to go to for your meeting place to make sure everyone's safe.
Okay.
And then obviously we can also work with the children on how to call 911. And we've received 911 calls from children as young as 4 or 5. And as long as they know they're not using it to order pizza, then we're doing good.
Yeah, that's great. Troy Hicks, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all of your knowledge that you are imparting on us. It's a great advice.
Perfect. No, thank you. It was my pleasure.
It was a very exciting and close mayoral race here in Lethbridge, with Blaine Hagan etching out a narrow 500-vote victory margin over second-place finisher Bridget Mearns. Now, we're honored to be joined today by our new mayor of Lethbridge, Blaine Hagan. Congratulations again, Blaine.
Thank you very much, Hal, for having me.
Now, were you a little surprised that it was so close, under 1,000 votes, or did you expect that?
You know what? I knew that it was quite the campaign, and to be very honest, I knew it was going to be tight. I knew that that Bridget was the one that was actually going to be the one that I had to really mount the campaign for. So yeah, I expect it to be close for sure.
Yeah, Bridget Mearns coming in a very close second, absolutely. Former 2-time city councillor. Now, Blaine, what were some of the bigger issues that came up when you were door knocking with voters?
My gosh, the number one thing, bar none, was definitely safety within our community. That was, if it wasn't at 90% of the doors, it was 95. It was safety within our community. And it didn't matter where we went. If it was to senior centers or at the doors or any forums, this was the comments and questions that came out.
Now, when I met you and I was chatting with you on the media panel for some of these forums prior to the election, I was asking you about potentially putting $1 million back into the police budget that was taken out to address some of the crime issues. Are you still heading down that same road, and you'll talk to the police commission about adding more funding for the police budget?
Absolutely, Hal. This is something that I campaigned on, and I truly believe that our police need the funding necessary to have the resources that they need to protect our community, and especially throughout this pandemic and also with the opioid crisis, we need to be able to give the support services that they need.
Now, have you chatted with Lethbridge Police Chief Shaheen Mediz today about maybe what they're lacking right now? Perhaps more boots to the ground in the streets here in Lethbridge?
Absolutely, I have. Actually, just earlier today, I had a great conversation with him just to reach out and find out exactly what they need. And we're planning on getting together, as well as with the police commission, sit down and see exactly what we need so that when this resolution comes forward, we know that it's got direction, and we'll know that the services that they're needing are going to be provided to support our community.
Now, the last couple of years, Blaine, Lethbridge was a very divided city over the opioid crisis, the SCS, and the increased crime that seemed to go along with it. Any thoughts on how to move forward on some of these issues?
You know, a lot of these issues, and we talk about homelessness in our community, Hal, and it's something that definitely is a concern. Now, we got to remember that not every homeless person is an addicted individual, and so we need to find housing for them. And so, of course, that is a lot of collaboration with our provincial government on getting the housing necessary, and beyond that, just collaborating with them and working with the experts on this to make sure that we can get through these trying times that we're in right now. It's not new to Lethbridge. It's not new in the last while here to Lethbridge, but it's something that many communities are struggling with right now. And we just need to find a plan going forward to be able to assist any of these individuals that are needing support.
Yeah, mental health supports, and like you said, a homeless issue is quite a big issue here in our city, and affordable housing. Now, Blaine, I want to ask you something. Let's circle back to crime for just a moment here. What's with all of the bike chop shops set up in our city? I mean, I've heard of car chop shops, but apparently stolen bikes are pretty big business here in the Windy City.
Absolutely, Hal. You know what? When I was during the campaign trail, I visited many different businesses, and I witnessed just out their window a chop shop happening. Saw some bikes come in, saw them disassembled, and I'll tell you what, within a half an hour, a new bike was going out with different parts, and it was quite concerning to see at how quick and good they are with this. And I would love to have these individuals actually working in a bike shop, because wow, they're good at what they do. And it was really unfortunate to see. But you're right, Hal, it has gone through the roof. You cannot leave a bike anywhere, even if it's locked up. It's so tough because these individuals just know what to do to get the bike they want.
So how do we address some of this stolen bike issues here in our city?
Well, gosh, it's that collaboration with our chief of police, the police commission, find out exactly what we need to do. One big part is, and it's something that comes from all the citizens, is to make sure you put your bike in a safe spot. And I know that if we were able to do this 10 years ago, I still say the same thing, like, gosh, I used to do it, leave it here. Why can't I now? But just trying to do our part so that it's those bikes are kept safe, because leaving them out, they're not going to last very long. And it's sad to say that, but it's true currently with the conditions that we're going through here in our community.
Now, Blaine, obviously you have some new faces on Lethbridge City Council. One of the concerns with the last council was the divisiveness. There was a lot of division on council. What is it going to take to actually have that change?
It's one of the first things I want to look at is what, in addition to this safety concern, it's to really sit down with council and find out what exactly they want from the community. Because let's face it, we all want the same result. It's how we get there a lot of times is what differs. But these differences they make us stronger. Let's work on these weaknesses and these differences, because I think it's extremely important. We sit down, we come to a common goal of what we want to see in our community. And I really believe when I look at the council that was elected, I'm just overjoyed. It's great. I really think we're going to work well together. There'll be some challenges when it comes to different topics, but you know what? Respect is the number one thing, and we'll get through it and we go on to the next resolution, because we're going to differ, and that happens always. But it's coming in with respect, Hal. That's the main thing.
Now, Blaine, obviously winter's just around the corner. That means a lot of snow here in southern Alberta. Let's talk about plowing, because I know with the last mayor, Chris Spearman, I've asked him about this. The side streets outside of the major thoroughfares, people sometimes can't get out of their own neighborhoods, their own cul-de-sacs, because the snow is stacked so high. Do you think you're going to kind of push to maybe have some plows go through some of these secondary roads to help people get to work or to school?
Absolutely. It's something that comes up. Knocking doors is the concern with snow removal. We were fairly fortunate with a lighter winter here this last one, but you know what? It's over a 4-year budget. So sometimes we're over, sometimes we're under on the budget each year, but over the 4 years, we hope that it levels out. But regarding some of the side streets, it's difficult at times to get them. There's priorities set up. So the main roadways, et cetera. But if we have to use additional services or private contractors to help us get through this in a quicker way, I believe that it's something that council should look into, because not only does it get that snow removed, but it also supports those private businesses that are taxpayers within our community. And so it's something I definitely want to look at.
Increase snow removal without raising property taxes. Remember that. That's pretty key here.
Absolutely, Hal. You're right.
Now, Blaine, every candidate campaigned on a platform by bettering the economic fortunes here in our city. What do you think really needs to happen to see this take place and maybe draw in more businesses to our region?
You know what? The collaboration, it goes back to collaboration, Hal. And the most important part is touching base with our Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Lethbridge. They know, they're in touch. They've got their ear to the ground to businesses that are looking for opportunities in our community and working together with them. As we've said, and it's a word that we've heard far too often, we're better together, but we truly are. We need to work with those experts in those fields. So if it's, like I say, the Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development, I'm planning on getting together with them, sitting down and finding out, some of their goals. And if they've had any communication with these businesses that want to relocate to our community, let's do that. Let's get on that same page and bring business to our community.
Now, Blaine, one of the ballot questions was whether or not to go ahead with a third bridge here in our city. Voters indicated that, yeah, let's go for it. They want one. Now, that's a huge financial undertaking. Where do we go from here? And getting back to property taxes, to build a third bridge, you're going to need to come up with a lot of money here. So are we going to see a large tax increase as a result?
I'm glad I had this opportunity to chat to you about this, Hal, because it's something that's I campaigned on is getting a third bridge. for multiple different reasons. And people know me as being very fiscally conservative. So of course, when I said, we want a third bridge and the number come up with 12 or 13% tax increase, I would never support it at that. But what I would support is looking into other ways, thinking outside the box. A prime example, not limited to this, but there's many communities that actually have a bridge for zero cost to taxation, and it could be possibly a toll bridge. Now, I know some people get scared when you hear toll bridge. Zero cost, it's user pay, and that's one of the options. The others is to communicate well with our provincial and federal governments to try to possibly, maybe where it's set right now, it's not the right location. Maybe we make it more of a regional roadway so that the province and would be involved. So maybe come up by the airport. I mean, it's just different ideas, but I'd sure like to further investigate it, as we saw the number that came in really showed that there was support for this third bridge. And the last thing I want to touch on is we've allocated some funds, or we want to build a fire hall further south. Now, we've just built one on the west side, and if we had a third bridge, the cost, if it's $40 or $50 million, or whatever that cost is for that fire hall, we might be able to push that down, because the access from the west side, new fire hall across the bridge may help as well. So safety is one thing for sure, and that could play a part of it, having a third river crossing.
Now, around 56% of voters also indicated that they'd like to see a ward system in place. Some people say, well, Lethbridge isn't really big enough, 100,000 people. We're not Calgary, Edmonton here, over 1 million people. Will you actually pursue that? And what do you think some of the pros and cons are of a ward system here in Lethbridge?
You know what? I want to sit down with council on this one, because it was definitely a direction it looked like from what the citizens that voted had indicated. And it warrants it, because I'll tell you what, I've had so many people throughout this campaign reach out and says, I don't have the time to go through all of these candidates. It's so tough to find out. There's 32 of them for me to research for candidate and 6 for mayor. This ward system, any communication I received was, gosh, we need a ward system so that I can actually truly look in and find out who's running in my area, find out more about them. And yeah, so that is a huge part of it, is just the time commitment to research these candidates. And if you had 32, and having someone you can go to in your area is important, I think. And it's something that I definitely want to look at. And I think that a council as a whole needs to listen to what the community has said, get together, further investigate this, and find a way to make this happen if that's what the citizens want.
Now, one of your campaign issues was to try and find a way to bring more doctors to our city. I know for our family, we just lost our doctor. He moved back to South Africa. He was frustrated. We have one of the worst doctor shortages in the province here in Lethbridge. So what kinds of things are you hoping to do to try and attract and retain doctors here in our city? How are you going to work with the province in that regard?
It's another thing I put on my platform, Hal, and it was interesting that I had many comments saying that that's a provincial thing. That's a mandated provincial. You shouldn't get involved at a municipal level. But I'll tell you something. I've had numerous doctors reach out to me. There was 6 over the last week that want to get together, form a committee, find out how we can not only retain but recruit doctors to the area. I spoke with one that has brought over 10 doctors to the area just because they've reached out and to the different schools and stuff and said, Lethbridge is an amazing community. And if these individuals didn't do that, the current practicing doctors here in Lethbridge, we'd have a concern, because the first thing, I know one of them in particular that reached out said, I wouldn't be here if I went off what my Google search was. And the Google search was, Lethbridge has a lot of crime, there's a lot of concerns, but they had a doctor reach out to them and say that it's a beautiful community, there's a great future, it's a great potential, and they moved down here. So it's something that is something we need to look at, and I want to be a part of that, and with any support that we can do, and to help them move forward with that recruitment and retainment of doctors in our community. Because I've talked to so many that have had, have lost their doctor.
So Blaine, any final thoughts as to the direction you want to lead Lethbridge over the next 4 years? Think about where we are now and where we're going to be in the future.
Absolutely. The number one thing is to listen. Listen to the community. There's so many incredible suggestions that come from the community. If we'll just take the time to listen, take those suggestions forward to the rest of council and further investigate them, pass them on to our administration, find out if it's something that's done in another community, do the research. And I think listening is so important. As one of my slogans throughout this campaign is listen to Lethbridge. And I just want to make sure that we do that. And the community has a part in these discussions.
Blaine Hagan is the newly elected mayor of Lethbridge. Mayor Hagan, thanks so much for your time today. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Hal. Appreciate it.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.